Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I
Couldn't
didn't
figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is author, spiritual director, and huge fan of Jesus, Jessica Morris. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. So tell us a little bit about your books.
Well, right now I have two. I'm very excited about that. It's, as you know, I think you've written at least one, right? That I know of?
One. Yeah, I got
Okay.
one out there.
It's not easy to get published, and that is very frustrating. But I published a daily meditation book about 10 years ago that's called Dewdrops. And that's mostly for people who are in recovery from addictions, all types of addictions. And then most recently, I just I finished my 6 years of part-time work in seminary, and I wrote a master's thesis there. And I turned that into a book because when I was finished and I graduated, I knew there was way more that I needed to say about it. I was writing it for the academic A, when I was actually in school trying to get the A. And then I actually graduated during COVID and had a lot of time to think. And a lot of stuff came up, and I thought, I need to write. There's a lot more that has to be written about this. And so that's the book that I just got published this summer. It was released in September. It's called Higher Powered.
Higher Powered. Can you give us the core of your thesis there?
Higher Powered, and the subtitle is One Woman's Journey of Personal Eschatology. And eschatology is the study, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the study of end times, basically. I grew up in a very sort of scary church setting. My dad was a minister, and he was a very good minister. Let me say that first. He was a very good minister, great preacher, good with the people outside of our home, and a pretty violent alcoholic at home. And so it was really, my brain was really messed up as a little kid growing up like this. What is this? He's great with these people. He's preaching great. And I actually loved listening to him, which was crazy because then we'd come home and it would be completely opposite of what he was saying in church. And so that's how I grew up. And I was really kind of scared because the message that I was getting from him is that we weren't good enough. Like the people in the church were good enough, and he was really good with all of them, but we weren't good enough. And so I just assumed that meant, because he was my dad, I assumed that meant that's what God thought of me too, because God was talked about in church as the Father. So I just assumed I'm a little kid. If my dad's this way, then God must be this way. And so I just made an assumption whenever I heard anybody talking about the end of the world or Jesus's second coming, that I would be one of those people who got thrown in the fire. Like that was just the assumption that I made growing up. And also then went down the road that I hated seeing my father in and went into my own addictions with food and alcohol. Very codependent, kind of crazy, codependent girl. And I went off the beaten path. I just left church, all that kind of stuff. And but never left Jesus. And you're probably going to love the reason why. From the little bit that I've heard, I always knew that Jesus understood me and
Hmm.
loved me and not necessarily understood me completely and had a great deal of love and respect for me because his dad, you're going to love this, his dad abandoned and beat him too. And
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I made the connection with him because of what I thought God had done to him.
Uh-huh.
And that the good part of that for me was it kept me connected. Like in those years when I was running away from everything else, it at least kept me connected with that love, that sort of foundational goodness
The
that
idea,
I believe
yeah, left you with that idea.
is part of, if you look at all the world's religions, that sort of underlying goodness is
Hmm.
there for the most part.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's
it
debatable, but
depends
yeah.
who you're talking to.
Yeah, yeah.
But so that kept me connected until I got into recovery.
Uh-huh.
And that's once I was in recovery, got clean, did a whole bunch of work on my childhood, like a whole
In
bunch.
recovery. Was it like a
I
physical place with doctors and all that? The recovery
actually I
place?
didn't go to a treatment center. I went
No
right
shit. Okay.
into the what they call the rooms of recovery. I went to lots of meetings, did I have you heard of the 12 steps?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That was
people,
the
essentially, there were people involved with this.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
while you were doing these things with people and through books and self-help stuff there, Jesus was your friend still through that or helper or
He was there.
okay.
He was always there for me. Like I never became an atheist or said I don't believe in God. Like I always knew God existed. Like I had a knowledge, I guess you could say. In spiritual direction, we talk a
Hmm,
lot
hmm.
about how um, we know things here, but we need to know them here.
Yeah, I
They
don't know
need
what
to
that means.
take
We'll
that.
definitely get into that though.
Yeah, they need to
Yeah, yeah.
take the travel from our mind to our heart. So, so I always knew Jesus and I always knew that God existed, but I had left organized religion. I did stop praying for a long time, like regular praying. Like because I
Hmm.
was so confused. I was such a mess
Ugh.
in my
Uh, uh,
addictions.
I don't know
And
what
then
that
in
means
early
though.
recovery, I was terrified because I'm clean now, so I'm not self-medicating. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen now because I still have those messages in my head from my childhood that if you're bad, you're going to get struck with lightning.
Hmm. Or go
And
to
I don't
hell.
know if or go to, yeah. And I don't know. And I had already been there. I mean,
Do,
I was
do
on
you
like
do you believe in a physical hell though?
um, not anymore. No.
No.
No,
What?
I don't believe that
Mhm.
there's a place that your soul goes. I
Okay.
believe hell is, for me anyway, what my experience has been
Hmm.
was an absolute separation from Jesus. And the reason, and I write about that in the book because I had an experience where it was about 6 years before I got into recovery. So I was a mess drinking, whoring around, the whole thing. I mean, it just eating my brains out. Or my addiction with
Sinning.
food
Lots of
went up
sinning.
and down. So it
Yeah.
was all over the
Lots of
place.
things God doesn't like.
Yes, it was bad. Well, and neither did I. I mean, I look back on it now, I think I was having fun, but I was not having fun.
Huh.
I was a train wreck. I was losing friends, all that kind of stuff. And I was
Yeah.
also that person who, after she graduated from college, went back. And this is not the seminary that I just did. This is like first round.
I don't think they allow drinking in seminary. I'm not sure, but I don't
Oh,
know.
they do, but
They
it
do.
depends where you
Well, just the
go.
sacramental wine, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was that person though who after I graduated went back to my college to party with the people who were still there. I just was that person. And I hated my life. I hated everything that was going on in my life. I was living at home with my dad again, and um, I went back for a party, and it was January. It was very cold, and I went out to smoke a cigarette. Nobody would come with me because that's how cold it was. And I was standing. I went to college in a very small town in Pennsylvania, and it was really quiet, like silent. You know, those winter nights where there's snow on the ground, you can't hear anything because the
Mm,
snow's covering all the noise. And so it was like that. And I remember looking up in the sky at all the stars. I mean, it was a brilliant, beautiful. I heard you say you love a dark night with stars. You know, I heard you
absolutely.
say that on one of your recordings, and that's what it was. Like that made me think of that right away.
Mm,
And I just started like telling God off, which was huge for me because I
mm.
was in so much terror that I would get struck with lightning if I ever did that.
Kind of therapeutic, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it was great. It was like I was just like, what? When am I going to get my turn? You know, like when are you going to come up for me and do something for me? You know,
Mm,
everybody, I see all these stories and it's never for me. You know, very whiny sort of. You
hmm
know, but I was letting him have it too. Some swear words were flying, and there was a moment, and I can only tell you my experience with this.
hmm
I knew that if I turned to my left, I would see Jesus, like he was standing there.
How would you
And
recognize him?
I felt him. I felt his love.
How does Jesus feel? Can I have a feeling that is distinct
Love,
from other feelings? I feel love all the time.
warm
I feel
love.
warm. These are things I can distinguish for other things. Is there a specific feeling that Jesus has that I can't get anywhere else?
It was an overwhelming understanding.
Yeah, again, yeah, I don't know.
I know,
That's not very
and
helpful.
I can't explain it any other way than to say that I knew he was there. And
But you didn't
I
see
be
him.
well, no, because I
Huh.
didn't look. I was
Peripheral?
so
Was there
I
like out of your peripheral vision? Could you see like a shadow figure of some
no,
sort?
I didn't see anything out of
See
my
long hair
peripheral
and a beard?
vision. I just nope, nope. I felt him there. I knew he was there, and it scared the crap out of me.
Okay.
And I ran into the party.
Did you ask anybody what was in the cigarette that you were smoking?
No,
Was it one of those funny cigarettes?
no, no. So I ran from him. I ran away. I ran
You
back into
ran
the party.
from the
I ran
feeling that
from my
Jesus was there.
understanding that Jesus was there.
Okay. So what happened now? You ran away from nothing, something, nothing.
I ran
And then
away
what happened?
from into the party. I don't remember the rest of the night, to be
No.
honest with you.
Uh,
I don't
Oh,
remember what
see,
happened the rest of
that just explains the drugs a little right there a little bit. I don't know, man.
There were no
Maybe
drugs.
you
There
were
were no
drugged.
drugs.
Could you have been drugged and you didn't know?
No. I mean, I was
Hmm.
drinking. When I
Oh
say, oh
man,
wait, when I say I don't remember the rest of the night, I don't
Jessica,
mean
I
I
don't know.
blacked out.
Okay.
That's not what I mean. I
Okay.
mean, like I remember that moment.
hmm
This was 30 years ago. So how
Huh.
you remember something 30 years ago is how I remember this whole scenario.
Yeah, vaguely. I mean, honestly, listeners, videos or something other.
What I do remember, because you had asked what is hell to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
And that's what I was getting at,
yeah.
is
Go ahead.
that this was hell from that day or night until I got into recovery. I was in what I consider a living hell. It was what when Jesus spoke in the Bible about his second coming, and he talked about how there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm sure you remember that
Yeah.
part,
Well, then the fire parts too.
the fire parts. I, the personal eschatology that I'm talking about in my book is exactly this, is that Jesus spoke metaphorically about everything. If you know, you read his
That's not very
parable,
clear, though. I mean, if he's going to be a
it's
great
not
teacher,
clear. You're
I
right.
mean,
It's not
that does,
very clear.
he's also not the author of confusion, apparently. But I'm really confused about most of it,
Well,
and
what I can
so are
tell
most of the
you
Christians I talk to too.
what I can tell you is that what happened to me was like a darkness, um, a hopelessness, a
Feelings.
just yeah, feelings.
I
And
mean, okay,
I
so
became
if
very suicidal. I was, like I said, I cut myself off from the world,
Right.
basically.
Did Jesus want to help you?
Did he want to?
Correct. Did Jesus
I,
want to help you?
I believe yes. Yes, I
So
believe
at
he
that
did.
moment when you were outside, no drugs involved, and you didn't see Jesus, but you felt Jesus and you knew it, at that moment, did he want to help you? Was that what was happening at that moment? He wanted to help you and you rejected his help?
Yes, I think
Okay.
what happened
Yeah.
was I was calling out.
Uh-huh.
I was saying, when is it my turn? And he appeared like, it's now.
He kind of appeared, but yes. Yeah,
And I said, oh shit, I don't want to deal with this.
yeah.
Careful what you wish for kind of feeling.
Well,
And
yeah.
ran away. I ran away.
If I'm yelling at Batman for never saving me, and then I feel Batman's presence, but I don't really know he's there, and then I walk away from Batman and deny his help, Batman is still going to try and help me. He's still going to try and save me. Why would Jesus leave you alone at that point? Why would
I,
Jesus send you to this hell or allow you to go through this hell instead of being there personally with you the entire time, regardless of what you told him to go away? You see those movies where in real life when people are going through the drugs and they're trying to wear off and what start to wear off and whatnot, they get very violent and angry at everybody. But the people
Mhm.
stay around. The ones that actually love them and care stay around, physically helping them, with them, holding them, comforting them, more than just feelings, actual touch, which is, not the tingly stuff, the actual
Right, right.
touching and feeling. And that's the difference I see there is Jesus let you go through this personal hell, which I'm sure you feel you needed to get through it. But people can
Yes.
get through these personal hells with somebody at their side. And if Jesus is really there, truly trying to help you, he would have been there at your side, helping you side by side. You've seen the picture of the dude shooting up heroin, and Jesus's arm is there, and he's like, that's not real. That's just fantasy. But if Jesus was really there doing that with you, instead of you just having to pretend that that's really happening, you know, that would be a whole lot different. That would be more of somebody trying to help. That would be somebody who cares and is doing their best to help you through this situation instead of letting you just go suffer. I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
I hear you. And
Yeah.
that's a great question. It really is. I do, and I can't answer that for you. I can only share with you my experience. I can't,
Mm,
what I can tell you is that I do believe that that had to happen the way that it did. There
mm,
are
mm,
the counselor that I met, I had to move. There's a lot of moving pieces here, but I had to move from where I was, the job that I got when I got into recovery and all that kind of
mm,
stuff. Had I just at that point walked into a church, let's say,
mm.
and knowing what I know about organized religion, I'm not sure that I was ready at that point.
Right. That's where the Jesus
Me,
coming,
not
sitting with you comes in, where Jesus is actually holding your hand. You know what, Jessica? Let's go to church. I'm going to go with you and let's go through this. Let's deal with this issue that you're having. Anything. Like that's what a friend would do. But Jesus is vague and abandoning, apparently. I
no,
don't see that as helpful.
he didn't. I don't think he abandoned me. I ran from him. He
Right.
never
He
gave.
abandoned you by not following you. He has the ability to follow you, just like
Michael,
Batman has the ability to
listen,
save me afterwards.
I'm not saying that he didn't follow me. That's not what I'm saying.
He didn't help
I'm,
you through it, was
I'm
what I'm
saying
saying.
I ran away. I lived through it.
Yeah,
I
which I'm
believe that
sorry. That sucks. I'm
he had a huge part in that.
I'm glad
So,
you were able to get through that 100%. Like kudos to you
yeah,
because that's not easy to do. So awesome. I think you did it on
right.
your own. Well, not on your own, with help from other people. And I love it when people help people, especially through these kinds of situations. So that's awesome. But I don't see where we need the Jesus part. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
So
we don't. We
okay.
don't need the Jesus part. That's my experience.
Right. But again, the reason or the way that Jesus went around doing it, that's my problem.
But I haven't even, I'm just begun to tell you the story.
Already, I already have problems with it, Jessica.
Oh, well, I hear you. I hear you.
It's already
And I
got
guess
problems here. And we started off
my,
with knowing Jesus, knowing Jesus loves you and knowing Jesus cares about you. These are
yes,
things that you're claiming that to me just I don't understand how you know these things. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then Jesus does these things to you that shows me that's not really caring and loving. So how do you know that Jesus loves you? Where does this idea come from? How do you know for sure that Jesus loves you?
I know in my heart that he loves me.
I don't know what that means. How do you know that though?
It's an experience within my soul that I feel in my heart, in my soul, in my,
I don't. I don't.
I hear you, and I wish there was a way for me to somehow explain it to you in a logical way. You remind me a lot of my husband because he loves to talk in logic, and he asks me, in fact, he just started his own journey with
Hmm.
Jesus about 2 years ago. And so and he never did the church thing or anything like that. And so he's got tons of questions.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean, just
and
reading the Bible first
he's
chapter,
just like, this is, um, so I wish there was a way for me to explain it to you other than sharing my experience with you. But
and your experience so far isn't showing me the love of Jesus. That's not showing me that Jesus is loving. That's abandonment at that first stage. The first stage. So what's the second stage? You fixed it. You did awesome sauce.
he didn't abandon me though.
Was he there
I
holding your
ran away.
hand?
I ran away.
Did he come back after you?
Yes.
When you walked away, did he go, "Oh, where are you going, Jessica?" and follow after you?
Well, no.
No, that's what I'm talking about. That's
I
exactly what I'm
mean,
talking about. He abandoned you. He let you go. Batman would not abandon somebody. He would go after them and save them. Spider-Man, same any of these heroes, actual
Jesus, well,
heroes.
first of all, Batman and Spider-Man are not Jesus.
Very clearly,
You
Jesus does
realize
or
they're
Batman,
fictional.
Spider-Man
You
don't
do
require
realize
bloodshed
they're
for
fictional
forgiveness.
characters, right?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm right there with Jesus.
Jesus was not a fictional character.
Right now, the Jesus you're specifically talking about is a fictional character to me.
Okay, he is to you.
Yeah.
He's
So
not
this
to me.
this this real character to you, this real person Jesus,
Mhm.
is a friend of yours, correct?
Yes,
You're a big fan of him. Do you have a personal relationship? Personal. I don't know.
yes.
How would you describe the word personal relationship?
Daily communication. I spend
Interest. So back
a
and forth
couple
daily
hours.
communication.
What's that?
Back and forth daily, like my wife and I can have back and forth daily communication.
Well, I mean, I don't hear him in my ear.
I don't know what
You
that
know,
means. So where do you hear him if you don't hear him in your ears?
I read the word every day. I
We can read
write.
lots of scriptures that say horrible, horrible things. That doesn't
Well,
mean that
there's also lots of
Jesus is
scripture that
speaking
say
to you.
beautiful things.
Well, we can address those in one at a time, but we can also find them in other things. We can also go to the Old Testament. Jesus is randomly telling us a verse, right? Here we go. Randomly telling, oh, look at that, stone disobedient children. What is Jesus telling me in this matter? What is Jesus telling me?
Where
These
are
are
you
these are
going
holy,
with that?
righteous. These are holy, righteous, perfect, and good laws. They're coming from the Bible,
Jesus
right?
never told us to stone children.
Jesus is God. God is Jesus.
I don't know
Do
where
they
it
have the
says,
same ideas?
I don't know where it says that God said that we should stone children.
It's in the Old Testament. These are the laws that God put down. He calls them holy, righteous, perfect, and good. So God thinks that these ideas are holy, righteous, perfect, and good. And in these laws and ideas that God thinks are holy, righteous, and good, is one of them is stone disobedient children. The other one is there's a lot of them in there for women as well. Some are really disgusting. One of the most horrible one is for their monthly cycle. They have to kill something and apologize to God for the thing that He gave them. So
Okay.
there's lots of things in there that I find atrocious. And if we're going to turn to some random things in a devotional towards Jesus or with Jesus, and we turn to these specific verses, a lot of them are horrific. What do we do then? How do we how do we talk to Jesus about the verse that we just read? Let's say you open your stuff in the morning and it turns to the stone disobedient children. What do you do at that point?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't read the Old Testament as much as I do the New.
But you
I
do read
read,
it. So at some point,
yeah, I do.
yeah. So at some point you're going to open your Bible and maybe it'll go there. What happens? What do you do at
I'm
that point?
I'm going to I hope this will help because this really helped me a lot. Okay. Two things I'm going to
Oh,
share with
oh,
you.
uh-huh.
All right. The first one is that because these things that you're asking, I've asked them.
Uh,
Okay. I've asked them. I don't understand a lot of the Old Testament. I don't understand
or
how
the
it
new
got
for
put
me. Yeah,
together
same.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is in my recovery programs, which is where I was able to find my way back to God. Okay. Because I don't know if you know anything about recovery, but basically, there are steps within the 12 steps where you need to reference God. Okay.
Well,
That's just part of it. You've got to
it's
have
part of the program, yes, but I don't think
you've got to
you
have a
don't
higher
really need
power,
to,
like
but
a
yeah.
power outside of yourself.
Mm,
And one of the things that was shared with me, because I said, I can't do this. I can't trust this God that put me in that home. I can't. And one of the women that was there said to me, what if whenever anybody in the room shares in a meeting or talks to you about God, because that's actually the only word other than higher power that's allowed in the rooms, because
mm.
you don't bring any outside issues in. So she said, what if anytime anybody said God, you thought of good, orderly direction so that my higher power became good, orderly direction. So anytime that I said or heard God, it was just, and that, like you said, like you've been saying, that comes through people. So the people, the community of people became my higher power. As long
Mm.
as I wasn't my higher power, that was the important piece, that I wasn't running the show anymore. Because when I was running the show, it got me, passed out in some guy's apartment that could be a serial killer. you know.
Well, I think we should definitely give ourselves more credit there. There's more ways to recovery than just the one
Well,
12
oh,
step
oh yeah,
program.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
I'm
that
just
one
telling you
specific
my
one
experience.
has the
I'm just
higher power to it. And I think there's lots of better systems out there.
There are
Not
other
just that one.
systems. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that I'm sharing with
And
you,
yeah.
that the higher power doesn't necessarily have to be the God of your childhood or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing. The second thing is in regard to the Old Testament. My Hebrew Bible professor in seminary, somebody asked her the question, what are we going to do about homosexuality? Because we're supposed to be good, loving Christians. And
Mm.
in the Old Testament, it talks about homosexuality being a sin.
Yep.
And what are we supposed to do with that? Because Jesus never really talked about it. Like nobody ever asked him, is it okay to be a homosexual? I mean, it
Well,
just,
the New Testament definitely addresses it.
he
Not just, I
doesn't.
mean, I can't particularly remember a specific point
He
Jesus
doesn't.
does, but it is in the New Testament. There's God kills
Well,
gay men after he
Paul
made them gay.
references, right. So,
Yeah,
but
Romans
I'm
1:24.
talking specifically about Jesus now, okay? So what she
Same guy
said
though.
okay, what she said to us when that question was brought up. She said, what I need you to do when you're reading the Old Testament and when you're reading the Bible is to remember that the Bible was written by men. Okay, men wrote the
I,
words down.
we agree on that. Yeah,
Men added things to it. Okay.
men wrote the Bible.
You're going to love this part. She then said, no, you are. She then said, have you ever noticed that there's nothing about two women being together in the Old Testament? It never mentions that two women aren't allowed to be together. It just talks about two men.
Hmm.
And she said, do you know why that is? And we were all like, no, why? She said, because men are pigs and they had lots of wives and they love to watch their wives together.
Most likely, yeah, sounds about right.
So
That's why we get a lot of barbecue references in the Bible
they're
as well. Yeah.
they're not going to put something in there that's going to make them feel bad.
Mm.
So
Mm.
basically what she was
Mm.
trying to illustrate to us is that it's it's about discernment when you're reading. And
Okay.
when Jesus came, he basically looked at the religious leaders and he said, you know what? You guys got this wrong. You guys got this wrong for a long time. And that's why I'm here. I need you to recognize that these things, these laws that you put down for people, it's not helping.
Where does Jesus say that the laws are not helping? Because I see in Matthew 5:18. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, you can say it.
Well, Jesus, truly, I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of this pen, least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anything, blah, 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 blah. So Jesus says, follow the law. He even scolds the leaders for not stoning disobedient children. It's in there.
Jesus
Scolded. Scolded people
leaders
for not stoning disobedient children. It's in Mark 7:8-10. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to traditions of men. You have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. Verse 10, for Moses said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death.
Okay, so
he's scolding them for not following the commands. And then later on, Jesus says that, the law will not disappear until everything is accomplished. Heaven and earth haven't disappeared.
When he's talking about the law, he's talking about, I believe, he's talking about the 10 Commandments.
Well, there's more than just 10 laws. There's a lot of them. So if God or Jesus was very specific about which laws, instead of all of the laws, he would have said the 10 Commandments. That would be a little more specific, unless Jesus is super vague.
That is the law from God, though.
Those are all laws from God. You do know that, right? God gave those laws to the humans to follow because he felt that those laws were perfect, righteous, holy, and good.
The 10 Commandments.
All of the laws.
Okay.
Yeah. So nowhere does it say just the 10 Commandments. Can you point that verse out for me where it says just the 10 Commandments?
I can't.
Yeah.
No. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get into a match.
Well, you can't because it doesn't exist. So, I mean, it's not like we have to debate about it. It's just, it's not in there.
He was very clear, though, that
okay. What was he very clear about? Help me out.
Jesus was clear that he lifted women up. Like you were talking about all the stuff in the Old Testament about that was horrible for women. Jesus basically lifted women up and he, put them front and center. He allowed them to follow. He didn't say they couldn't.
Right, but that doesn't mean he lifted women up. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Did he give a whole speech about how awesome women were and that they should be equal?
No.
Did we get one of those speeches?
No, he didn't. No.
Well, that would have been something. That would have been like, hey, Jesus is lifting up women. Look at him go. Instead we get a verse that's added afterwards, the story of the prostitute by the well. That's an added addition to the story. It wasn't even in there originally. So I don't see it. I don't see Jesus lifting up women. I see Jesus condemning divorce as well. If the woman is divorced and she gets married again, it's called adultery. And we all know the law for adultery, which is not in the 10 Commandments. It's a different law. One of those other holy, righteous, perfect, and good ones. And it's death. The law specifically calls for the death of the adulterer. So Jesus is calling for the death of divorced women being married to other people. That's what I'm seeing there. Yeah. That's what I'm discerning out of the words that are being written.
And I hear you, and I guess I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
In the conversations that you're having with people who believe these things, okay, because it's clear from my profile and my book and everything that I believe these and that I'm a lover of Jesus, right? So you knew that you were. So I guess my question to you is, you do seem very okay with what you believe about the Bible and that God's not real, that he's a fictional character or whatever it is that you would suggest. You seem okay with that. So I guess my question would be, why the podcast? Why the conversations? Is it that you're seeking for
Answers
answers?
and clarity. Answers and clarity. I'm looking for answers and clarity. You know that Jesus loves you. How do
Yeah.
you know these things? I don't know that. That's an interesting claim. You know how the universe got here. I'm assuming Jesus or
Well,
God, right?
gee, I have no idea how it all happened. I just know
Oh,
what it
oh.
says. I
You
know
have,
that
yeah.
I believe God is the creator of the universe, but I don't
Well,
know how
there
he
you
did
go.
it. I'm not
Well, I
going to
mean,
begin to
that's how
pretend that
God.
I know how it happened. I
You
didn't
just
even
did. You
get
said
through
God did
ninth
it.
grade
That's how.
biology.
Okay. Well, you claim to know that God created the universe. You claim to know that Jesus, is there with you and all these other things. I don't have those answers, and it's very confusing to me. And this stuff is everywhere. So I want to know if anybody has the answers. I'm not getting any answers still, but I'm still searching. We're almost at 300
And
episodes, and we're
and
still not
well,
finding the answers.
that's my question. Is the search because you want to know for yourself? Like because
Who else would I want to know for?
well, no, I mean like do you want to have a relationship with
Do I
God?
want to have a no? I'd like to be able to ask him questions. Can we start with that? I'm not
You
just going
can
to say,
ask
"Hey, that guy's going to be my best friend." That's weird. Let's
No,
have a
no, you can
conversation
ask him
first. And
questions.
he doesn't
You
answer
can
me, Jessica. It's really weird. I can ask questions to the ceiling all day long, but that doesn't help me find any answers. So I'm going to talk to people that actually talk back to me, and those are people that believe this stuff. Because Jesus
Right.
doesn't want to have a conversation with me. God doesn't want to have a conversation with me. He's not showing up on peripherals, just hiding out there, waiting for me to look over. He's nowhere. It's really weird.
I
It's
think he
almost like
might
he
be.
doesn't exist.
I think he might be.
I think if he wants to have a relationship with me, he should come over here and say, "Hi, I'd like to have a relationship with you." Instead of I get people telling me that the God wants to have a relationship with me. Well, great. Can you tell your friend to show up? Can we have your friend Jesus show up and talk to me? Because I'm still
Maybe
waiting.
this is just a suggestion,
Oh, I love
okay?
it. I love it. Go.
Maybe me being here is him saying,
I've
I
heard
want to
that
have a
before, and
relationship.
that is not good enough. And Jesus knows that's not going to be good enough for me.
Oh,
That just doesn't work. That's just people. I don't believe in ghosts controlling people. I don't believe in telepathy. Jesus not mentally sending you messages to send to me.
so what I'm hearing you say is
Mhm.
you would like him to just
Well, that would
like
be
here I
great if he would just
wouldn't that be
anything.
wonderful? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Can he move
Let
a
me
chair
tell you
across the
something,
room?
Michael.
Poltergeist can move a chair across the room, but your friend
The
Jesus stays hidden. He won't
the
even make the,
biggest
the book fall. Make the book fall, Jesus.
the biggest regret that I have of my
Gideon.
whole life
Remember the story of Gideon?
is that I did not turn to the left that day.
Gideon asked, and God did. He made ground wet
You
and
did.
fleece not. He made fleece wet and ground not. God was able to do these things. Jesus is able to show up for people. Why does he refuse to show up on the podcast or for me in general? Ask him. You're his friend. He listens to you. Ask him, and then maybe open up the Bible and we can go from there. Do you think that'll work?
Well, sure.
Okay, go. Ask him, and then open up the Bible, see if it's a good answer.
I can ask him. I
Okay.
also know that he's not like an on-demand.
We do know that. We just explained that he is. He works that way. He works that way for Gideon. He's worked that way for people in the Bible all the time. Now, God can show up for you. He is your friend. If I had a friend, I can have my wife show up on the podcast. It's super easy. I got to just, baby, come on the podcast. And then she would come on the podcast. Jesus can't do that. Why can Jesus not do that?
I don't know that he can't.
Okay, let's do it then. Come on, Jessica. Let's go.
What
Let's
do you
do
want me to
this.
do? You want me to just
I want
ask
you
him
to
to show
ask your
up?
friend Jesus why he's not showing up for me because he's not answering me. And then when you ask him why he's not showing up for me, we're going to open the Bible and find an answer. Because that's how Jesus works, right? He sends you messages through the Bible.
Well, and through writing,
Great.
you know,
Let's
like
anything you want. We'll do it. Let's ask him. Go. And then I'll
I'll
I'll grab a random book here and let's see if it
it's
works.
it feels like right now this feels very much like entertainment.
Well, if
And
the show's not entertaining, nobody's going to listen. That's number
no, I
one. And number
understand that,
two,
but
Jesus is
I
going to
don't.
save me from himself, right? Jesus needs me to be saved. Jesus wants to have a relationship with me. It's ridiculous that he doesn't want to show up. Let's have him show up. And this is the only method I know how is to communicate to him through you, and then he communicates through you through the Bible. That's what I'm hearing how he communicates through you. So let's try this out. Let's make it happen.
I have it open right now.
Well, okay, well, that's kind of defeats the purpose of asking him a question first and then opening the Bible to a random spot. But maybe he gave us some foreshadowing. What's the verse that you're open to?
Ephesians.
Okay, read one random one. Jesus will
This-
lead you.
The a final word. Do you
Oh,
know this?
final. Gotcha. Go.
Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put
I
on
don't know what
all
that means.
God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil.
Such a ridiculous thing, though. It's fake armor or putting on invisible armor. God's not able to protect you unless you put on invisible armor. And then God created a bad guy that's going to attack his children. You have to have invisible armor to stop him. That's not answering my question why he's not talking to me. That didn't really help out. I think we did it wrong. We got to ask the ceiling first and then open the Bible. I think that's how it
Jesus
works.
is not in the ceiling.
Well, he's upstairs, right? He's upstairs in the towards the
He's
ceiling.
he's everywhere.
Okay, so we'll look nowhere then. I don't know. Just are you able to ask him? Can we do this?
I would love for you to show up for Michael today. In fact, when I prayed in church this morning for Michael, I was hoping you would show up for him. I'm not sure what he needs, but I know you do. So I'm going to flip the page, and I pray that in this moment, it will be exactly what Michael needs. And it will speak to his heart and his mind and his logic. I pray all this in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right.
All right, here we go. I'll open, you open. We'll see which one's better.
Romans.
Ooh, Second Samuel.
I'm at
Not looking
Romans
good.
3. See, I knew you'd go to the Old Testament.
Jesus led me. This is Jesus leading me to do things. Or maybe probably yours better than mine. Because go ahead. What did you find? Romans?
I got Romans chapter 3. The
Mm.
heading is God remains faithful.
God remains faithful. What does that mean?
Would you like me to read the verses?
Well, let's just go with that one. God remains faithful. That's a good sentence. Let's start with that.
Well, that's
What
the
does that
heading.
mean?
That's the heading of chapter 3.
Oh, I got you. Sorry, I thought that was just the verse there.
No, it starts with, then what's the advantage of being a Jew? Is there any value in the ceremony of circumcision? So they're talking about circumcision.
This
So
is
here,
Paul deciding whether he wants to be circumcised or not.
you're right. Yes, Paul already was.
Or sorry, anybody else in the churches have to
Anybody
be
else?
circumcised.
Yes, there are great benefits. First of all, blah, 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 blah. This is one of those moments where I actually love what he did just now because I believe Jesus did this.
Okay, what did he
This is
do?
one of those moments where he is validating for me that when religious people start arguing with each other,
Uh-huh.
they lose sight of him.
Okay,
These
or
guys
God changed
were,
his mind and he doesn't want you to cut part of your pee-pee off anymore.
these guys were arguing over something that had nothing to do with Jesus.
Why did God have them do that in the first place?
I have no idea.
Well, he says it to set them apart, to make them different. Think that's a good idea?
No,
Would
I
you
don't
give
know.
that rule out to set people apart?
Would I take that rule out?
No, would you give that rule? Like, would you put that into motion? No, why not? Why wouldn't you do that?
I don't know. Well, maybe I would because I think it looks better.
Oh, no, what just happened? Oh, Jessica.
Hey, it's about being honest, isn't it?
No, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Oh, make me red. That was good. That was a good one. Oh man, not expecting that. I lost my train of thought now. I don't even. Oh yes. Oh geez. Oh man. But God's reasoning, for his reasoning. Do you think that's a good reason to do that?
You know what? I can't, I think one of the parts and I'm not very good at quoting, but one of the
Yeah.
parts in Isaiah where he says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways, is very comforting to me. I know that's not comforting at all to you, but to
Well,
me, it's very
mm,
comforting because there are a lot of things in this world that I cannot explain. And
well, let's go with his ways are not our ways. What
mhm.
do you think he means by that?
I believe that there's a when I say grand, I mean like beyond the grande at the Starbucks, like way grander than that plan
Uh-huh.
that is so far beyond anything that my human brain could ever possibly fathom. And a lot of things that happen, I'm not going to be able to ever understand them. And I have to
Okay.
accept that on faith that, maybe, because this is the other thing, I do believe in a heaven. I do believe that there's a place our souls go
Oh,
after we die. Like, I don't think we just go into the ground and that's the end.
hmm. But no
I do
hell.
believe, I don't know. I
But there
don't
is a
know.
heaven.
I believe that. Yeah. Or a heaven or another spiritual realm, I guess
Why
you
do you
could say.
believe that over the hell?
Because the hell I've already experienced.
But the heaven. Why do you believe that there's a heaven over, because now you think there's no hell. Why do you think there's still a heaven though? Could you
Because
not be
that's
in heaven now?
because that's eternity.
Could be just describing your time here when you're better.
It could be.
Because
You're right.
so I don't know
I
how we get to
can't
that. Yeah.
I can't talk about things I've not experienced very well.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, understandable. Understandable.
it's just
No, that's
something
fine.
that like I believe I'm gonna see my mom again, or
Yeah, that's tough.
I'm gonna see my friends again who've passed away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do believe that. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, what age are they going to be? I don't know. I know it's
I
tough.
have
There's a
no
whole lot of
idea.
different things there. There's a whole lot of different things there.
I have
And
no
and
idea.
to me, and I don't no disrespect, of course, but it feels like wishful thinking. This
It
sounds
could
really
be.
positive and I love this idea, so I'm just going to wishfully think that it's real. And that's where the pretending comes in and that's where the faith comes in, and they're all just the same to me.
And it could be that Jesus does return and it actually happens here.
What do you think is going to happen during these end times?
Well, the what I studied, the
Hmm.
eschatology, there's several different forms of eschatology.
Hmm.
Like apocalyptic eschatology is in the future. So
Hmm.
that's like sort of the book of Revelation where he's talking about it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Realized eschatology is a lot like the Gospel of John, where Jesus consistently said, the time is now, it's happening now.
Some of you are not going to be,
Yes, some
some of
of
you are
you,
taking,
your
yeah.
generation will not pass, and
Yep.
all that stuff. And those were the ones I studied to
Hmm.
get to my place of personal eschatology, which is what I believe has happened for me,
Hmm.
and I believe it happens for a lot of people, where Jesus comes back specifically for me, for you. And when he knows that that you're ready to accept him into your heart.
So the help me understand that. It's not our natural time when Jesus says it's time up, that's when he's coming back for you, or is there an actual end times and whole Revelation
I don't know
war?
if there's going to be like an end of the world thing.
Well, the
I,
Bible says that. Do not believe what Revelation says.
that's another thing that I heard in seminary that sticks in my mind. I had a professor who talked about the book of Revelation in the sense that it could have been a completely symbolic piece of writing for Rome.
Most of it, could be a complete symbolic
Right.
thing for it. But
See, what
Mhm.
seminary did for me, in fact, was help me to recognize um, the danger
Mhm.
in absolute belief without asking question.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Definitely
And
dangerous.
I very much appreciated the professors I had who really challenged me to move beyond the childhood version
Hmm.
and ask questions, write about it, talk about it,
Hmm.
um, find out more. My dad was one who always said, you should never ask why.
Oh,
You know, don't ever
that's the
ask
best
why.
question, I think, is why.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about my recovery journey and my seminary, because when I graduated, people were like, do you feel, you have a master's now, do you feel? And I'm like, all I know now is how much I'm never going to know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much out there to
Yeah.
know. I mean, this
Hmm.
world is just filled with knowledge, and it's just impossible. Um, but my recovery journey has taught me that saying I don't know is actually a really healthy thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to everybody around you. You don't know.
Right. Like
Absolutely.
it's so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to make up stories anymore because what's the point?
Right. Yeah.
I
No,
just have to
that's good.
remember them. And then that's
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to this Jesus thing, though. I want to go
okay.
back to
Sorry.
the
Sorry.
Jesus
Okay.
end times in his time. Um,
Yes.
how do you explain that? What is that to you? What is he saying?
When, like I said, when I was growing up, it scared the crap out of me because it was very much like a fiery death for those who were
Same.
sinners,
Yeah. I was
yeah,
terrified as a kid. I saw those
yeah, yeah.
movies, Distant Thunder or whatever, I don't remember those. The True, man, what
The
was
Omen
those
put me over the edge. Let me just tell you, The Omen
70s
put me
movies?
over the edge. That just
The
scared
Omen.
me. The Omen and The
No.
Exorcist. I
Oh,
was,
that was so
yeah.
cheeseball. I love it. I love it. But my thing was
But
these were tribulation movies that I saw as a kid that scared the crap out of me. Because I
oh,
was told
okay.
that this was real and they were going to happen. Clear and present, future date. No, that's a different thing. Oh man, I wish I could remember those damn things. Anyways, but yeah, there were
Well, I
tribulation
like
movies.
the, yeah. So the
I'm sorry.
idea that the time will come
Yeah, yeah.
when Jesus will return to the earth. Okay, like in form, like you're talking about, like you're saying,
Right.
I
Well,
want
Jesus
him
was
to
talking to
come.
the crowd saying that that generation will witness it, right?
Well, that's what he was saying in John.
So was that true? Did they witness it? Did Jesus come back in that time, or was Jesus talking about somebody else?
Well,
What do you think?
it depends which theologian you're talking to.
I'm talking to you. Which one? This is the
Okay.
one I'm talking to. What do you think?
What I think he was saying is what I wrote about in my book,
Hmm.
which is that I think he was speaking symbolically the way he did, or metaphorically, the way he did with most of his parables and most of his stories. And what he was saying is, I am personally coming back for you. And
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
so he was not necessarily saying the earth is going to explode into this fiery mass and some of you are going to get thrown into the fiery mass, the rest of you are coming to heaven with me. Like that's not necessarily what he was saying, in my opinion. He
Did
was
he say
basically,
specifically that he was coming back? Because I don't remember that part. That
I can't
Jesus saying
remember
it was
exactly
actually him
where
coming back.
I
Um, yeah.
I can't remember the exact wording of it.
I don't believe it was Jesus
But
saying that Jesus was going to
when
come. I
this
think it was the
time
Son of Man
comes,
is going to come back.
which he was the Son of Man.
Well, he didn't call himself that.
He
He
called
wasn't
him,
saying I'm coming back, the Son of Man. He didn't call himself that there. But
he
that's
said
a
the
whole nother thing.
Son
We
of
can dive
Man,
into
though.
that one later. That was,
Yeah.
but we're getting close here. I did want to close it on one last little topic here: the his
Yes.
ways thing. His ways are not our ways.
Yes.
As I see it, his ways are definitely not our ways. I would not implement number one these laws of the Old Testament, these horrible laws. I wouldn't do that. Those are his ways. Those wouldn't be my ways. Also, his ways of slaughtering children. I wouldn't do that. Those are not my ways. So when he says his ways are not my ways, that's what I'm seeing as far as that goes. Now, when he does these horrible things I just mentioned, do you see them as his ways? And what do you do with it at that point?
I can't wrap my brain around it.
Hmm.
That's the honest truth. I
Hmm.
cannot wrap my brain around it. Why, like, take the Holocaust, for example.
Hmm. His
Okay.
favorite people.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay. It makes zero sense to me. What I can tell you about it is the amount of writing
Hmm.
that came from that came from people that were there, that came from people who died there, that has helped
Hmm.
millions of
They shouldn't have
people.
had to, though, Jessica. That's the point, is Jesus should not have had any of these problems. But my actual point, though, that's really horrible as well. But the thing is that God is actually doing these things. Not that there's people on earth doing horrible things, Pol Pot, Hitler, and God's not stopping it. My point is God is actually doing these horrible things. And how do we see that? Because those are his ways at that point. God, let's go with the David and Bathsheba's kid. He caused it to suffer for 7 days before killing it with a sickness. That's horrible. That's horrible. That child did not deserve that whatsoever. Those are his ways. He decided that would be the best way to deal with that situation. I don't see that as a good thing. So when you get confronted with something like that God has done, according to the Bible, these stories,
Mhm.
what do you do at that point? How does that work for you? How do you wrap your hand around that?
I don't try to understand it in the
Hmm.
sense that you're trying to understand it. Like I see
The
where you're, I
why,
see,
right?
yeah,
The
like
why.
the why. I still ask the question, like, why does this have to happen?
Hmm.
Like when I got cancer, why?
Hmm.
Why? You know, when, anything like that happens, I ask the question, why? And
But not in this situation. Why not? Why not ask why God had to have that child suffer before killing it?
I I can ask it.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Is it because his dad sinned and isn't that horrible?
Well, the enemies of the Lord showed contempt because of the sin of David. So now the
Right.
child born to him must suffer and die.
Right. And
Again, that's not a good
that
reason.
makes zero sense to me. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
And those are God's ways.
I can't, it's not for me to question that.
Why not? You just said it's not a good idea. You said earlier that it's
Not
you
question
should
it, not
question it.
question it. Okay, sorry. It's
Yeah.
not for me to judge that,
Why
is
is
what
it
it,
not for you to judge that? You're a
because I
human
don't
being
know.
with logic and compassion and empathy in there somewhere. We all have it. We got it. I've
Right.
seen it in you.
Yeah.
So how do we correlate that? How do we connect those two? How do we deal with that?
This is how I would deal with it if I were in that situation. I would be a friend to Bathsheba.
I wouldn't have killed the kid. So I'm going to judge the guy that did because that's my human emotion, my human empathy, my human condition, whatever you want to call it. I believe that we should not be slaughtering children or having them suffer and then kill them for silly reasons, number one. Like, man, I can't even think of a good reason, but what a silly reason to do it. So I'm going to judge that character that does that 100%. And I don't understand why we would not judge that character for doing the things that they do.
I don't know that God did that.
Well, the Bible said so. Did he flood the planet?
That he did, yes.
Did he kill all the kids in their sleep during the Passover?
Wow. These are your talking points.
Did he or
Okay.
did he not, though?
I, See, these are questions that I can't answer. I'm
They're
not
in
God.
the Bible. So if we're going to
I'm not
believe
God,
part of
though.
it, but not all of it, though, why
No,
some and not all?
what do you mean, why some and not all?
Do you believe some of the Bible, but not these stories that God
No, no,
is
no.
saying that he did?
I'm not saying I don't believe them.
Okay, so God did it. God said he did it, and you believe that.
I can't, I don't know.
Okay, so
I
you don't.
wasn't
Well,
there.
I love the I don't knows. I love those. Those are my favorite. But
Well, I'm serious. I don't. I
right, I
can't.
don't know if Jesus came back from the dead. I wasn't there. I don't know if Jesus was the Son of God. I don't know if he said any of these things because I wasn't there. I wasn't there. You weren't there. All we go off of is a book with a bunch of contradictions and gross, horrible things in it. Yes, it says some nice flowery things, love your neighbor, but I can find that outside of the Bible. There are places where I can find love your neighbor without stone my neighbor or capture them as slaves or take their wives after you kill them and keep them as your wife. Like horrible, horrible things. Just anyways. So we're running out of time here. Any closing comments, and then where can we find your stuff at?
Closing comments. I hope it doesn't sound condescending, because that's not at all my intention.
Hmm.
My hope for you, seriously, is that you can find some peace in all of this, whatever it is and however you're looking for it.
Hmm.
Whether it's to maybe even just put it all aside for a long time and just say, you know what, I'm not even going to look at this anymore because it's making me nuts.
It's everywhere though, Jessica. Like I can't go down the street without a sign telling me I'm going to go to hell. You know, I live in Vegas, so there's lots of Jesus goes. Yeah. It's everywhere.
You
So
need
I
to
wish I
move.
could put it aside, but it's
You
in my.
need to move. You need to move.
That I agree. I agree.
Oh Lord. But I want you to be able to find peace with all of it,
Mm.
and with the people who want to help you get there.
Mm.
I would love to have you for spiritual direction.
That would be, I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, I'm more than welcome to join, but I'm not sure how fun it'll be for everybody else.
Well, no, it would just be me and you.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a deal. We'll do that. Send me a link and we'll set that up, and that sounds like fun.
I think it would be cool. But yeah, so that's my hope for you, and that would be my closing thought. And you can find me. My books are on Amazon. I have a website, jessicalmorris.com, where I share all my current writing. I do like a blog there, and both the books are there, so you can find me all over the place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jessica. Stay
Thank
safe
you,
out there.
Michael. It was a pleasure.
That's all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find all things BSW related on the show's website at thebiblesayswhat.com. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to thebiblesayswhat.com and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will get you early access to each new episode on Wednesdays instead of Sundays. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly share and review the show?